G'day there, guys! No one is a match for my debating skills. In my head, in the shower. That's right, it's your main man Markee, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the A-hole? Now, if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, and get ready for some bloody good stories. Thank you. Posted by user Captain Jack is a fart face. Titled, Would I be the A-hole for sending Neighbour a cease and desist letter? So last fall we moved into a new house, and less than 2 weeks later, had a baby. We were pretty focused on the whole parenting thing, and failed to notice how often the neighbour on one side was using our property for several things without any kind of permission or discussion. It started with his kids spending their days in our driveway drawing with sidewalk chalk. We had to ask them to stop because we seriously feared running them over when backing out of the garage, as they have absolutely no supervision or regard for cars. They stopped drawing and started using our garage door as a bumper stop while riding their scooters and bikes. They physically bashed into the garage door and dented it. I asked them to stop. After a dozen or so instances, they finally stopped. In the spring, we noticed that the dad was parking his trailer on our side of the property between our two driveways. The property line is very clear with fences and different types of landscaping. In addition, he was pulling his garbage cans through our gravel and making huge tracks. As we're in the middle of a pandemic and we have a baby, we decided to write a note and leave it with our information while also lining the property line with large rocks. Never heard from them, but they had moved the rocks into a pile on the front side of our property. We moved the rocks back again and thought we had made our position very clear. At the beginning of June, the dad and husband came and rang our door. He proceeded to tell us that because he's parked his trailer like that since he moved in, and no one has cared before, so we can't care either. At no point did he ask if he could park on our side or use our property. He said, "It's never been a problem and I should be able to do it." We politely said we did not give him permission to do so, and explained that we intended to landscape the area, and his trailer and use of our property would ruin the landscaping we had planned. The entire conversation was difficult because he spoke over me the entire time and talked to me like a child. At the end of the confrontation, he said we were rude neighbours and stormed off. Since then, he parks further over, moves our landscaping rocks constantly, and aggressively moves his garbage cans through the gravel, leaving marks like he was zigzagging back and forth. This weekend, I started taking photos as proof of his parking and the way he's ruining our gravel with his garbage cans. He came out and glared at me. I, very nicely, again, asked him to stop. He replied, "Why?" And when I said because it's my property and we've asked him not to, he replied, "Whatever," and walked away. Now we come to today. I'm done. I am so frustrated that this guy feels like he's entitled to unquestioned use of property that is not his. TLDR, neighbour with free-range children uses, parks, and ruins my property without permission and will not stop even when asked. Would I be the a-hole for sending a cease and desist? Not really. It does sound like you've given him fair warning with every opportunity you've done, and you've been nothing but kind to his face. I don't think he has the right to be mad if you do issue him with a cease and desist. I feel like a lot of people would have done that 10 years ago. And I'm also surprised that the previous owners of the property allowed him to park his trailer like that. Just because they did doesn't mean you should. That's common sense. The free-range kids are also a potential liability there because they're going to get hurt, and that's how they're going to learn from their mistakes. And if they're going to get hurt, you don't want you to be the one teaching them those lessons. If I were you, I would stay as far away from them as possible and let that be somebody else's problem to deal with. Go right ahead with the cease and desist. I support this motion, not the a-hole. Now in the comments, the Cookie Monster says, "Not the a-hole. Sounds like you've exhausted your options up until this point. But what will the cease and desist letter accomplish? Will you have it notarized and mail it with a signature required to prove he received it? What will the consequence be if he persists? Aside from pictures, you should put up a camera. If he causes any real damage, then you're going to want it on film of him doing it. Can you put in a more permanent solution like cemented in posts instead of the rocks? Short of them moving, I'm not sure you'll ever be at peace as long as they're your neighbours. OP says, I hit the character count, so I removed my info about how we had landscapers come and give us a quote and plan for hedges, but they can't plant until spring and want us to make sure he just won't run them over once planted. We very much intend to put up a barrier. Put cameras up yesterday. He's already let his kids damage your property, garage door, and I'd bet any landscaping you put in he would destroy. If it's on tape, you can sue to force him to replace it. You can also have him officially trespassed from your property if you have footage of him or the kids entering without permission, which can come with a hefty legal slap if he continues to violate it. Lady Rainicorn says, not the a-hole. He sounds as though he has no respect or regard for you or your property and hasn't listened when you have approached him about it several times. Sounds like it's gone on far too long, and you have every right to begin to take further action. Let's Do It says, not the a-hole. Get some legal advice and do everything by the book. He's a dick, he's trespassing, his kids trespass. They're going to destroy your property, landscaping, etc. You said people have called you petty for this. Nope. Petty would be getting some tire spikes and putting them on the property, but hidden so he'll always get flat tires when he trespasses. And Pedestrian Tony says, not the a-hole, I'd cross-post this to r/legal advice. And OP replies, thank you. I posted there about a week ago and got some great ideas. I want to send the letter as a hey, I'm actually serious about this gesture before getting scorched earth and getting the trailer towed and him trespassed from the property. I'm willing to go there eventually, but am hoping if he realizes he can't just walk all over me, he'll stop. Unlikely, but worth a try. And now onto the update. It's a very happy update. I drafted the letter with some legal assistance. Prior to sending it, I wanted to ensure I had proper cameras in the event he decided to make things worse. When I installed the camera, the neighbor must have realized why it was installed because they stopped doing all the annoying stuff. Then, about a month later, they listed their house for sale. They moved out and we don't have to deal with their entitled a-hole attitude anymore. I appreciate all the assistance and support as I was really unsure if I was going in the right direction. And edits, I want to clarify. I do not believe that the neighbor moved because of anything I did or asked him to stop doing. I think he had been planning to move for some time and was just an absolute dick of a person. They didn't move because of me, and even if they did, they sold the house for $200,000 more than they bought it 3 years ago, so he's not some victim. I do appreciate all the kind words. I am also bummed that so many people have crappy neighbors as well. Haploid Life says, isn't that an amazing feeling? We had a horrible neighbor when we moved into a place years ago. He threatened to shoot our dog, not because it was barking, but because we were playing darts with friends with our garage open and we were playing music. Not even loudly, at 7 p.m. He called the cops on us. They shrugged and said we weren't doing anything wrong, so then this guy threatens to shoot the dog. When he sold his place a couple of months later, I was so relieved. Great update. People who demand favors are my favorite. I used to rent an apartment that had a driveway. There was a condo being built next door, and the contractors decided that they would just park in front of our driveway. One particularly dickish contractor refused to move when we told him to. He said that because the other neighbor said he could block their driveway, we had to let him do it too. He said he would only move to let us in or out of our driveway. We called the cops repeatedly. They didn't ticket him though, and so he kept doing it. We called the tow truck, but they can't tow without a ticket on the vehicle in our city. So eventually I had had enough. I told him he had 5 minutes to move his truck, or he was going to regret it. Then after 5 minutes was up, I dumped an entire litter box of dirty kidder litter all over his windshield and the hood of his truck. He never parked there again. Especially gross, and I love it. Thanks. I went full Philly chick on his ass. At one point after I dumped the litter box, I looked him dead in the face and said, "You don't want to park here anymore. A crazy person lives here." Did I mention I was 5 months pregnant at the time? Don't piss off a pregnant woman or a Philly chick. And definitely don't piss off a pregnant Philly chick. And Oxgon says, I had some crappy neighbours also. This year, they weren't being as crappy during the summer, and I was wondering if it was because of lockdown. This guy was a huge Trump supporter and probably wouldn't have taken any of the suggestions for small gatherings. He had parties often. All summer I had the backyard to me. Very weird. Decided to look him up on Facebook and he died of COVID. So that happened. Life, finds a way. Posted by user Pink Lioness. Titled, Would I be the a-hole if I didn't give my parents a year of public relationship with my fiancé? Let me start this out by defining public. We, 24 female and 27 male, are public. Anyone I care about knows about our relationship. The only people we aren't very public with is my family. So by public, I mean being open with my family. Important to know that we're an interracial couple. I'm white, he's black. Now let me explain why we haven't been public. We met in high school, I was a freshman and he was a senior. I had a huge crush on him. We texted and flirted, but nothing really happened. He lived in a large foster family home, so no dates allowed. My parents told me he was too old. They told me I was not allowed to speak with him until I was 18, and my dad told him never to contact me again. When I left for college, we started chatting again and had our first date. I told my mum we were talking. She said to only date people with nuclear families and to not talk to him till I was 21. When I corrected her and said it was 18, she told me she was going to drag me home by my hair. In my second year of college, we made it official that we were dating. I texted my mum before Thanksgiving break that I wanted them to meet him. She harassed me about whether I was pregnant and refused to meet him. I told her in a crowded restaurant we officially were dating, and she got mad at me for hiding things. Over the course of the next couple years, every time he got brought up, I could visibly watch her demeanor change. When I tried talking about him in front of my family, my dad told me that they weren't ready. I eventually just stopped talking about him to them. Eventually, my aunt saw his profile picture of us on Facebook and figured it out. My mum said she assumed we broke up because I wasn't talking about him. Now I'm moving, he's coming with me, and we want to get married after 5 years together. We both have our masters, and I'm starting on my PhD. My dad told me that my fiancé and I haven't done good at being open about our relationship. When I mentioned how mum threatened me, his only response was, I didn't say there weren't reasons. He suggested that I give them a year of an open relationship in order to let the bad guys act like the bad guys. I tried, they resisted, I stopped. I wanted my best friend with me when I take this huge step in life. My mum and her family's position on interracial relationships and racism are quite clear-cut and explicit. I'm not exposing him to that, and I don't want to experience it. But is that insensitive? Would I be the a-hole for not entertaining the idea of giving them a chance to get used to our relationship before we get married? Why would you have to postpone your marriage just so that your family can get used to you guys being a married couple when you've spent most of this time not interacting with them and you probably won't continue to interact with them much because of their past actions? This really just does not make any sense to me. There's no logical or reasonable explanation for them wanting you to open up the relationship like that. These guys sound like toxic pieces of garbage, and no, you should not entertain their ideas. I'm gonna go with a not the a-hole, get married anyway, continue as you are. Prism of the Mind says, not the a-hole. That's a ridiculous request in my opinion. It's your relationship, not theirs. They had several chances to get used to the relationship. They just refused them. Seconding this, You've been interested in this guy for 10 years, and telling your parents about him for 10 years. That is more than enough time for them to sort out whatever internal idiocy they're working through. They have shown you time and time again they care about other things more than they care about your happiness. They are the a-holes. If they have children, I feel like they could be exposed to so much racism. Edit, I say if she loves this guy, live your life, don't count on your family. Make your own. Holy Terrain says, not the a-hole, your family is racist, full stop. There is no need to give your parents a year of your relationship being public. They'll likely use this year to come between you and your fiancé. They will continue to be racist and negative throughout the wedding planning process and your marriage. Shield your partner from them as much as you can. As a black girl who dates a lot of white men, I know how painful it is to know your partner's family feels disdainful towards you just for being black. From what little information you've provided, you and your future husband sound like you have a solid relationship. Don't give your family the opportunity to interfere. And OP replies, you're very right. Based on their history, it's not going to go well, and he will end up getting hurt. I would never want to expose him to racism just to earn the right to get married, which probably wouldn't happen anyways. I'm sure he would put up a strong front for you, but don't put him through that. It hurts, it's hard, and he shouldn't have to. And someone else replies to OP's comment there. You're right, of course, but what is your plan? Your fiancé is marrying into a family of racists. Presumably he is well aware of that. And you, what, plan to cut them out of your life? That wouldn't be undeserved, but it also doesn't sound like your plan. And OP replies, right now the plan is to find a damn therapist after all this. But honestly, low contact at the minimum. No Christmas with my mum's family for sure. I'm currently planning a 3-page text to send to my dad tomorrow while he's at work, telling him why I'm rejecting his compromise. And yes, he is aware. I don't hide these things from him. I haven't exposed him to the racism, but he knows how they act. And OPKC says, not the a-hole. Let the bad guys act like bad guys? What the hell is that supposed to mean? Does your dad want you to spend a year letting people treat you like crap before you've earned the right to get married? Well, hell, yeah, I guess it does. This one kinda hurts. My dad wants us to go through the ringer to prove ourselves. Doesn't that sound abusive to you? You deserve to suffer to prove yourself when he's the one providing all the approval, the punishment, and the tests? You have proved yourself by having a successful, respectful, long-term relationship, and your father has proved himself to be a vile, manipulative racist. I just don't get the value they add to your life with their racism casting a major shadow on every interaction. I wouldn't be complying. I would be reconsidering the point of even keeping them in my life. And OP adds an update in that post, saying, Update. I would like to thank you all for your perspective and advice. I wasn't expecting it to get this blown up. I learned some hard truths and I appreciate that. I can't respond to everyone, but do know I read your comments. I texted my dad this morning, letting him know that I wasn't going to put up or expose my fiancé to bigotry and racism. I told him I wanted a healthy relationship with them, but this wasn't how it's going to happen. I am currently looking into getting teletherapy to help me sort through some deep-rooted issues. I would like to end things on a happy note. My fiancé and I are very excited for our move. We are going somewhere cold and snowy, which we love. Our cat, son, and dog, daughter are coming. We hope they will also like the changing climate, despite the 12-hour drive they're currently and blissfully unaware of. Again, thank you all for your perspective. I will likely have an update in the future. And now on to said update. I wish I had a better update. I also wanted to say thank you to those that commented. I got a lot of encouragement and truth, and I am seeing a therapist. A few days after the post, I told both my parents that we needed to talk about my fiancé before I moved 10 hours away. They wanted a Zoom call, but I insisted on a phone call because I didn't want to have to communicate with them and be trying to read their facial expressions. The conversation went really badly. I had said I was tired of being expected to just feed them information when they never asked about my life. It was long silences and being told I was avoiding them when I asked them what they wanted to know about my life. Honestly, I really broke down after the conversation. On top of all the stress of moving and the pandemic, I just couldn't take it. My parents were still refusing to acknowledge anything we had talked about. My fiancé was as supportive as you could have asked a partner to be during all of this, but I was just really struggling. My sleeping schedule completely reversed, in which I was up all night having anxiety attacks and sleeping during the day. At my lowest, I was sitting in my car, eating breakfast, and straight up sobbing. I finally called my dad that morning, where he apologized and promised to do better. We had a really constructive conversation. I just wish he had stuck to it. My parents actually finally met him as we moved. We made a pit stop in my hometown since it was on the way, so I could see them and my two best friends before leaving. My dad was polite and friendly. My mum was dead quiet. Moving was stressful, as expected, but we're happy and almost settled in. We haven't gotten married yet, with the corona cases on the rise. We've been trying to be extra careful. We plan on just a simple courthouse marriage when we get the chance. This is very much to my parents' dismay, since I was raised in a conservative Christian home. Otherwise, my parents have completely reverted to their behavior before my original post. Not talking about it, not asking about my life, nothing. They continue to talk about me behind my back, and my dad straight up lied to his sister about how I have a roommate. I'm focusing on my family. I have someone in my life who is genuinely proud of me and interested in my life and happiness. I have a dog and a cat, and now have a kitten that I love with my whole entire heart. We have worked and created a life full of unconditional love. I do grieve for a healthy relationship with my parents, but I'm working on recognizing that I can't depend on a change in their behavior for my own well-being. End edit. Just for clarification, I am currently in minimum contact with my parents, meaning there's basic acknowledgement of occasional texts, and that's it. I give them the minimum to stay in contact with my younger sister. My fiancé has absolutely zero contact and exposure to them, and the only reason they met on the way out of town was so that I could grab some identification documents they had been hesitant to give me. User Just a Reader says, only one thing to do. They won't respect your wishes, so you don't have to respect theirs. Go no contact. You don't need the stress in your life. Also, for future reference, if you do have children, do not allow them to engage and come back into your life. They weren't supportive for 10 years through your relationship, and they will only bring misery and stress afterwards. Nobody deserves that, and you do not owe them a goddamn thing. OP replies, I'm not no contact yet, but minimal. My mum basically just texts me good morning occasionally, still doesn't care about anything, doesn't even ask how school is going for me. I give them the minimum so I can stay in contact with my younger sister, as she still lives with them. I definitely don't plan on letting them have any contact with any potential future kids. When I think about exposing them to the things I experienced growing up, and even now as an adult, it infuriates me. No kid deserves that. My mum exposed us to her abusive mother. She once held my sister and I hostage in her house for a week, and it's a nasty cycle that I'm more than happy to break. I have biracial children, and a lot of my family is racist. Protect your kids from that. They will never change who they fundamentally are, and the world is bad enough without family making it worse. It is your responsibility as the white person in this relationship to be actively anti-racist. Your partner doesn't deserve to be exposed to that, and if you have children, they also don't deserve to be exposed to that. It is your job to put them first, and acknowledge that the deep, generational wounds of racism don't vanish by your horrible parents playing nice just to see their grandkids. Based on their unwillingness to change, no contact should be the only answer here. Noel Frostmas says, "It really pisses me off that some Christians use their faith to be racist. What they forget is that Jesus wasn't white. He was from the Middle East. He was just westernized. I really don't understand how people don't get that." And OP replies, "My parents in the church are why I'm no longer religious. I have no problem with the teachings of Jesus, and in fact try to live by some of them, like love people as your neighbor. But the bigotry and judgment that comes from westernized Christianity is something I just can't stand. I'll admit I take a bit of a twisted satisfaction in the thought that most Christians I know would hate Jesus if they met him as a person. As a multiracial child that grew up with my dad's racist family, I'm very much hoping that any possible future children won't be exposed to them. They'll give them complexes they'll be battling their entire lives. I'm glad you two are so supportive of each other." And Electric29 says, "What struck me about the original post was not so much their racism as their arrogance that their way was the only way, and your mum saying she would physically abuse you, dragging you home by the hair after you were a legal adult if you didn't follow her orders. That is scary. Run far away. You were better off, and I hope you will be very happy." And OP replies, "My mum is definitely someone who sees her worth connected to her child's actions. She once told me her friend must be so embarrassed because her son and his fiancée went on vacation alone. Well, joke's on her, her daughter lives with her fiancé. Sorry, it's Friday and I'm tired and sassy. But yes, after she said that, I got a job and started working to be financially independent from her as soon as I could, and now I am." G'day there guys, and that's the end of today's episode. I do hope you enjoyed it and were entertained by today's bloody good content. As always, I want to do a quick shout out and a thank you to all my channel members and Patreon subscribers. Your beautiful faces and names will be up on screen right now. Haven't forgot about you guys, sorry I was taking a little break there. So yeah, if you see yourself, give yourself a pat on the back. If you want to be on this screen, there's links down to the description below where you can sign up and help support the channel and all future projects that I'm going to be doing on this one. With all that said, I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to. I'll see you in the next episode, and I do hope you enjoy it. Thank you.